Hello, my friends. Welcome to another episode of 30 Albums for 30 Years, 1964 through 1994, where we take a look and a listen to the most impactful albums during those years chronologically. So that's 30 albums for each year. I am your host, Jay Sweet. Today we will be checking out the album The Beatles 65. Capitol Records released December 15th of 1964, recorded between June and October of 1964. So today's episode is episode number 30, the final of season number 1. So I figured I'd just give you a quick update as to where I'm at and where we are with the program. I launched the first episode only about 3 months ago. Since that time, we've had over 700 listeners, and it continues to spread across 22 countries, with our newest country being added, which is France. So welcome, France, to the program. The show has also morphed somewhat in terms of direction and content as I started to include more interviews. This season alone, I've had the opportunity to talk to many great musicians, including some of my personal musical heroes like George Benson and Ron Carter and Stanley Clarke. All thrilling for me to speak to these guys and everyone who has come on the program. So with all that being said, I am encouraged to continue, although I must admit this is a lot of work. So over the next 2 or 3 weeks perhaps, I will be getting back to some outside projects, such as completing the final chapters on my upcoming Ray Brown biography, which is scheduled for release later this year. That's to Equinox Publishing. So I got to get that done. It's a project I've been doing started over 20 years ago, and really it has been the most challenging thing I have ever done professionally. And additionally, it's gigging season, so I'm playing a lot. So I definitely need to get back into the practice room and shed for some of those gigs. And I do have a design for recording a new album. So, there's that as well. So it's a lot. But regarding this program, so I'll take a little bit of time to research next season's albums, set up some interviews, and further promote season number 1 through a new TikTok series that I was told I had to do. I guess that is the future, and I just have to accept it. So, or the present, really. So I'm going to be doing this TikTok thing to try to promote the show. I also will release some fantastic interviews that I conducted over the past, and I have lined up. So there'll be some interviews coming up. And after, let's say, about 3 weeks or so, I'll return to a new season, and hopefully you continue to listen and spread the word. So I do want to thank you all for being a part of the program. Now, to get back to today's program, this is, again, episode number 30. The album is The Beatles 65, which was actually released, of course, in 1964. And when it comes to early Beatles albums and the timeline, their releases are a bit of a puzzle. So let me try to help you with the pieces somewhat. In the UK, the Beatles released the album Beatles for Sale. And in America, they released The Beatles 65, which contains many of the same songs. Eight of the 14 songs were on both albums. Beatles 65, the American release, went to number 1 in the US, capping off one of the most incredible years that any band has ever had. Now, to date, the Beatles 65 has gone 3 times platinum. So let's get into it. The Beatles 65. All right, music fans, let's get into this one. Let's drop the needle on track number 1, side number 1. The tune is No Reply, which was a Beatles original that was meant to be used by an English rock singer named Tommy Quigley, who was also managed by Beatles manager Brian Epstein. When Quigley didn't use the number, the Beatles decided to record it for themselves, probably because they were rushed to get out new material. So they had this song, they needed material, and they chose to record No Reply. The lyrics come from John Lennon, and they're about a boyfriend who can't get in touch with his girlfriend, even though he knows that she is home and with another guy. So the lyrics actually are a tad bit stalkerish. Check it out. And the groove moves from a bossa nova to kind of a rock groove. It's a solid opening track. Apparently Lennon lost his voice after recording the tune. Although not a hit, it had been covered by bands like Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers, Cheap Trick, and Wilco. I'm a loser. No, don't feel bad for me. I'm not really saying that about myself. I'm introducing track number 2. I'm a Loser is a song about rejection. John Lennon revealed that the song was influenced by Bob Dylan. Lennon states, "That's me in my Dylan period. Part of me suspects I'm a loser, and part of me thinks I'm God Almighty." He was, of course, neither. The tune is definitely a departure, thematically, from the Beatles' more early, positive lyrics, and Lennon apparently wrote the song after a breakup from a relationship. Musically, the melody and the chords are simple, but they are catchy. Lennon plays some harmonica on this one, and Harrison's twangy guitar solo is also notable. I'm a Loser hit number 1 on the Canadian charts and number 8 in the UK, so this song was not at all a loser. Track number 3 is Babies in Black, which is lyrically pretty dark for an early Beatles song. It's basically about a grieving girl. The song is a waltz with country elements. It's a hidden gem that remains locked inside the Beatles catalog. Not a lot of people know about this song, but they should. Take notice of the 3-part harmonies and the sound of George Harrison's signature 12-string electric Rickenbacker guitar. Track number 4 is Rock and Roll Music, an excellent cover of the 1957 Chuck Berry tune. It may be the Beatles' best cover, and the song reached number 5 on the Billboard charts. The band played the tune often as part of their set at the Cavern Club, and they nailed the basic track in just one take. Producer George Martin then overdubbed the piano parts. Rock and Roll Music. The 5th track is I'll Follow the Sun, which is a gorgeous ballad written by Paul McCartney, who claims he wrote it at the age of 16. The percussion you hear is Ringo tapping his knees. The song offers fantastic harmonies, beautiful guitar work, and great lyrics. It's a shame it's not more well known because it is pretty incredible. The final track on side number 1 is Mr. Moonlight, which follows I'll Follow the Sun. I guess astronomy is cool. The Latin-style tune is written by a lesser-known American R&B singer-songwriter named Roy Lee Johnson. This was another song they used to cover at the Cavern Club. McCartney plays a good deal of organ on this track. It's really not fantastic. It's kind of a dud, actually. I'd rather Follow the Sun than Mr. Moonlight. They can't all be great. It's on the record, so we check it out. Mr. Moonlight, track number 6. Okay, let's flip the record, drop the needle on side number 2. Track number 1 is Honey Don't. Honey Don't is one of 2 Carl Perkins songs on the album. Musically, the song reflects the influence of rockabilly on the Beatles' early music. Rockabilly is often described as a unique blend of country music and blues or early rock. The song's lyrics are about a man who is frustrated with his partner's behavior, but yet she keeps leaving him and coming back. Ringo sings this one, and he had sung it before in his old band, Rory Storm and the Hurricanes. That's before he joined the Beatles. It's one of the few songs he sings lead on early on. When asked if he could sing it, someone might have told Ringo, "Honey, don't." The other Beatles are better singers. Track number 2 of side 2 is I'll Be Back, which is considered one of the Beatles' most technically impressive early compositions, as it shows the usage of more experimental chords than most pop vehicles from the time. It's also a tune that reflects Lennon's insecurities when it comes to relationships. The tune was issued on the US release of A Hard Day's Night, so go back to my broadcast on that record, check out my comments, then I'll be back. This next track is She's a Woman, which is a solid blues song written and sung by Paul McCartney. It was a B-side to I Feel Fine, but yet it charted number 4 in the US. It's McCartney trying to write a song in the style of Little Richard. He even sings differently on this one. He puts an affect to his voice. The lyrics speak to a woman's confidence and independence, which shows that the Beatles were aware and progressive when it came to the shifting attitudes of the women's liberation movement. The lyric, "Turn Me On," is likely a reference to smoking marijuana. It may be the group's first drug reference in the song. There were others. Harrison's double-track guitar work is also notable on this piece. She's a Woman. How you feeling? I feel fine. And so did the Beatles, and they let us know on this next track, I Feel Fine, which is the most recognizable hit from the album and the only number 1 hit. The song includes some of Lennon's and Harrison's strongest early guitar work. The main riff was inspired by Bobby Parker's song, Watch Your Step. Take notice of the guitar feedback in the opening. It's one of the first usages of feedback on a commercial record. Apparently, the feedback was caused by interference from John Lennon's amp, and it's pretty neat that they left it in the final mix. Ringo plays a cool, Latin-tinged beat. McCartney's bass playing is simple, but holds the entire tune together. Lyrically, the song reflects optimism, which was a break from the more dark material being released by artists like Bob Dylan, Simon and Garfunkel, and Nina Simone in 1964. Simply put, I Feel Fine is a classic. Okay, the final track on the original LP is Everybody's Trying to Be My Baby, which is another Carl Perkins original that he recorded in 1957. George Harrison sings this one, and his voice is pretty processed by tape echo. The most notable part of the tune is Harrison's rockabilly guitar work. Harrison was a huge Perkins fan. It's not a particularly memorable track, but a pretty solid closer showcasing the talents of Harrison, particularly as a guitarist. All right, so we did it. We made it to the end of the record, and we are better for it. So put the record back in its jacket and put it back away. Save it for another day. In conclusion, the Beatles' album 65 capped off what is quite possibly the most magnificent year any band has ever experienced. Beginning in 1965, the Beatles would begin releasing more magical albums like Help and then the groundbreaking Rubber Soul, which showed a shift in the Beatles' overall direction. All right, my friends, there we have it. Season number 1 in the can. 30 albums done 1964. What a magical year for music. I hope you've been enjoying the program. I've certainly learned a lot in doing it, and I'm enjoying it as well. So we're going to continue, as I mentioned. So stay tuned. There will be some interviews posted and maybe even a special episode while I prepare for season number 2, 1965. So give it, just a few weeks and that'll be up. As I mentioned, I have all these other projects I have to kind of get to, but certainly into doing this, so I'm going to keep on it. So to stay in touch with where I'm at and what's going on, go to 30albumsfor30years.com. Also check us out on social media. And I want to mention once again, I have a book available called A History of American Music, 1750 through 1950, an origin story. You could check that out through Kendall Hunt Publishing. So together, let's keep this music alive, and I look forward to speaking to you again soon. Have a wonderful day.